To leave me any questions in the question box about pre-med life, med school, like pad of cheap paper. Some volunteering around that, so my leadership was related to that. Books, and I personally like studying. My name is Shanna. I am a third-year medical student at UBC, and so thank you so much to U Waterloo Pre-Med Club for inviting me to do a takeover today. I never volunteered in a hospital, so 0 hours. No one asked me to explain myself, like why I never volunteered at a hospital throughout my entire medical school application process interview. I felt like I had a much better social life in medical school compared to undergrad because there was less pressure to do extracurricular, so there was more time to date, hang out with friends, take care of yourself. I did my undergrad at UBC in integrated sciences in pharmacology and neuroscience. I like that it let me basically do a double major without the work of doing 2 majors. The way I studied most of undergrad is I just grabbed a giant pad of cheap paper, and then I just wrote things out by hand, and then I just never used them again. So I would never waste time making really nice neat notes, but just enough to help me memorize, write it a few times and then throw it away. And the two would be to pick up any practice exams or practice questions that you can get from other people. In medical school, you really have to keep up on top of it and try to be studying at least every 2 days, whereas in undergrad I felt like I could get away with not studying really until it's close to the exam. So that's something that way it's more difficult, and I think there definitely is time for your life. Some days, like yesterday, was pretty boring where I just spent most of the day at the desk, but then on the weekend I had a movie night, went out to go on a hike, and just really didn't do too much on Sunday. Definitely the interview process, it's really taxing, and it's also a very unusual interview format. With MMI with some of those schools. It's always better to take 5 instead of 4 if you can. That would be the best option, but I did remember taking 1, maybe 2 year 1 or 2 level courses, but I think it is best to keep them mostly 300 level. I studied for 2.5 to 2 months. I would buy all the practice exams that you can get your hands on and do as many of those you can. I spent very minimal time reading those textbooks, and I personally like studying by myself as opposed to doing a course. A couple classmates who did their learning in the United States, and then one classmate who did their learning in Scotland for their undergrad. But I did a lot of psychology research. I think it's an excellent program. It's a major that I would have applied to. I think it really sets you up well for doing well in medical school because it teaches you so much physiology and anatomy. Emergency, super fun, so much variety. In the same night, I think I saw something like a heart attack, to someone who broke their leg, to someone who has, you sew up some scratch on someone's face from a fall, and then you have lots of strange abdominal pain. And my rotation in the pediatric emergency department for any kids coming in with any problems, and then we would be on call for any babies that are newly born, and you do an exam for them, or you rescue them if they're having issues after they're born. And then I was also in the neonatal ICU. The highlight of the pediatric rotation for me was that all the pediatric doctors that you work with are super keen to teach you and mentor you and talk you through things and let you practice a lot. Mostly from what your teacher says in lectures, from their slides, as opposed to what you might read in a textbook. I would have taken it easier on extracurriculars and enjoyed my life more. I stressed more than I needed to, and I think I realized that you don't need to have a huge long list of extracurriculars or achievements to get into medical school. I also wish that I tried to do a semester or a year on exchange. It seems like that's a lot of fun, and there's not really a lot of chances to do that once you're in medical school. I recommend making sure you have a variety of people that are writing letters for you. So for example, I had a range from an employer to a volunteer supervisor to a research supervisor to a professor. You don't want them to all be professors or to all be volunteer supervisors. Just put it wherever you feel like you have less. For example, if you have a lot of volunteers, then just plump it into extracurriculars. Just try to fill out the numbers so they look even. It doesn't really matter what you put out. Leader of a community service club when I was at UBC. I did a lot of research because I was interested in that, so I did a couple different projects. I'm very passionate about working with individuals with disabilities, so I did some volunteering around that, so my leadership was related to that. I totally bombed my first calculus midterm in first year of undergrad. So if you totally bomb a midterm, a course, you can still make it to medical school. Myself as a good example. Although I think what that showed me is that I just needed to really change up the way I did things in life. So, and I struggled with calculus even when I was in grade 12. So I don't think it was surprising that I was like struggling with it when I came to undergrad. But I think I really buckled down and was like, you know, this mark is horrible. I won't get into medical school with this stuff. So I just like pick it up. And then so by the next term of calculus, so if we take 2 terms of calculus in first year of undergrad at UBC, it was much better. I like knew how to study. I like aced it, you know. Probably was the best mark of my year, and I think it was just like taking it more seriously. And you know, I think for me, like, you know, just like learning how to study, and also just like undergrad's like a pretty big transition, and I think it's pretty normal to like have like struggles with like classes and stuff. Is it okay to take 4 courses instead of 5 for one semester? What are the impacts of that for med? Oh, and that's not true. There was one semester where I took 4 courses in a lab, and that was like pretty nice. But I think in general, it's better to take a full course load if you can. I think it just shows like a bit of like rigor, and it just kind of prepares you to handle like how busy and crazy medical school is. Like it's like full course load times 2. I think it just like prepares you well. That said, so I took 5 courses, I think every semester except one of them, and I felt like that was like actually manageable. So I think good, because like I think everyone treats it like a lot of like seniors that you know might recommend you to take like, oh, like take 4 courses to like adapt. I think 5 was actually quite manageable with like good time management, and if you balance out the courses well, I think it's actually better in a way, because I personally, like obviously personal bias, I feel like it's much better to take like 5 courses during the semesters and not take any summer courses, so that you can use your summer courses just to do like research full time, or work full-time, or volunteer, or do whatever your passion is, full-time, travel a little bit, like as opposed to like being stuck in school doing summer courses. I think like having a lot of life experiences makes you much more of an interesting candidate for your courses. That said, there was one semester, I believe it was my second semester of second year, where I decided to only take 4 plus a lab, because it was like, I was struggling because I think I had taken 6 courses initially, and that was like way too much. That was what was supposed to be required, because I think like and then there was like 6 courses and 2 labs, and I was like struggling, I was miserable. And I do think at that point, if you feel like the difference between taking 4 and 5 courses is like you being miserable, hating life, not really wanting to do medicine anymore, and just like poor mental health, then, you know, take 4. So like I would have, instead of dropping all the way down to 4, which I kind of regret a little bit, was I probably would have done 4 of the hard like sciences, so whatever OChem or analytic chem, pharmacology, whatever my last one was, physical chemistry, and then I probably would have picked up like a easier, softer course, whatever that is to you. Like for example, I probably would have done like a psychology 101 or 102, which I ended up doing like in my 3rd year. I probably would have put that there, just like something just fun to soften it up a little bit, but still maintained a full course load. So I personally really like going through a 4-year school as opposed to a 5-year school. 3-year school, because like it's a lot. Medical school, there is so much stuff to learn. I can't even imagine doing it in 3. Like right now I'm finishing the end of my 3rd year, and I feel like there's just so much more I could learn. And I think it's like, and then I think they don't have any breaks for summer, and I think that would have been very stressful and very overwhelming. And I think one thing, it's hard to think about now because right now you're just thinking about getting into medical school, but it's really important that you're in medical school is your time to actually build your resume up to apply for residency, which is later on. So, you know, more years gives you more time to build connections, network, build up your resume in that way. So what did I major in? I majored in integrated sciences, which is a special major at UBC. Let's see, but some really other popular majors that my friends in med school did, there's a lot of, you know, pharmacology, there's physiology, a lot of microbiology. What else did other people major in? One of my friends did something like interesting. One of our classmates did, I think, Italian. There's some music majors. There's like 2 music majors, music and like biology. What else? One of my friends did kinesiology. There's a couple kinesiology majors. There's a couple nursing students. I think really popular ones, though, you know, biology, biochemistry, microbiology, pharmacology, a lot of like life science majors. I did a ton of research. I don't think research is mandatory by any means, but I personally really enjoy doing research, and I still do it because I think it's super fun. So I did that. I worked in a lab like quite a couple of years. I think I only had one publication by the time I applied, maybe two, some like abstracts for like conference presentations. So I did that. It was kind of like psychology research, so it doesn't have to be like, so and so like does like, I had some friends who like they did like cancer research, and they did I can't think, like, things that sound really cool. I did not save any lives. I did not do any cancer groundbreaking stuff, but I thought it was really fun, and my research mentor wrote me a really good reference letter, and so I thought that went a long way. I also worked a whole bunch of random jobs. I taught piano, I think. I was teaching one of those like I don't know if you guys like Korean, like hagwon, like for like the SAT. What else did I do? Did I tutor math or something? I did a bunch of sports. But I didn't do any sports when I was in undergrad. I did sports like when I was in high school, I guess. I'm sorry, it's the wrong question, I guess, but like it's still mentioned. I think like briefly aligned. It's like, tell us about your hobbies and things. So there's like a category in UBC application. So like just kind of, I think like remembering to add in those things that make you well-rounded are really important in your application, not just like I'm accomplishment 5,000 and 1,000, taking in the time to write. I think I want like physical activities. I think I put in like I enjoy playing ice hockey. I do a lot of Pilates. I do a lot of whatever, I like to, what else did I do? Like, so it's kind of like a little bit of like sporty stuff that you're interested in. I was really into, like, I've always been very into like creative writing, so I put that down. I did a playwriting program for a couple of years, so that I wrote that in. I think like it just makes you like unique. I also did poetry writing for a couple of years. Shady past, I suppose, but I think again, like those are things that make you like unique and different, like put those in. What other things that helped benefit my resume? Like, I would recommend so I guess like to summarize like what this might apply for you guys is just like make sure you're like doing checking off some of those boxes, those like volunteer experiences, your leadership experiences, hopefully trying to build a relationship that'll get you a good reference letter. But then also remembering to do things that you love. So, it doesn't have to be writing for you, but you do art, you run a beauty YouTube channel, you're passionate about fashion, you're passionate about cooking, you are a huge skier. Like, remember to keep doing those and put those on your application to like show that you're a well-rounded person. Other experiences, what other volunteering did I feel like I felt like undergrad was a hard time. You're like always running around between like different volunteer activities. I was really passionate about working with people with disabilities, so I did a lot of volunteering with that. I did some camp counseling. I did one of those like weekly like volunteer with someone activities. I was also part of like leadership of a club that was involved in that kind of work. So I think it was like a lot of just following my passions and then just kind of picking up leadership and volunteering around those. How did you get your research positions? I honestly I got rejected a bajillion times applying through like the bulletin, but I stuck to the same research position I think most of my undergrad. We have this thing at UBC, I don't know what you guys have Waterloo, but it's called like this undergrad research experience opportunities. So like for example, like last year I ended up taking on an undergrad who was interested in doing research with me, and then so if there's something equivalent for you, you'll match with a medical student or a PhD student, and like I walked her through a project that we're working on in medicine. I think it was a surgical project, and then just kind of and then you get a research away, and then you kind of once you get more relationships, and you get kind of more projects after this like program like concludes. So I did that myself when I was in first year as well. I actually found my opportunity. I applied to some like general program that was like a like summer scholarship or something, and so they found my mentor for me, and so that was really helpful. One of my current opportunities that I'm working on research right now, actually, that I started doing when I was in first year medical school, I just like found the email of someone doing research that I thought was interested. I just sent him a cold email, and he got back to me, and here we are. I think a lot of it's like knowing people. For example, like I just started research just last Wednesday or something like that. I like think of like a friend who says like, oh, I'm interested in the field that I'm doing. So-and-so is like interested in the field that I'm doing research in. He shot me like a message on Facebook and was like, hey, like, do you know of anything? And at the time I said, no, I don't know any research at the moment. And then like something actually did come up a couple weeks later, and then I sent him emails like, hey, like I actually have this, like thanks for reaching out, let's get you connected. And so now he's helping us with this project. So I think just like reaching out to people you know and making yourself available. My tips for doing well in research, though, I will say it has irked me in the past where I've like, you know, say taken on an undergrad student and they don't actually have any time to work on the research project. So they say like, oh yeah, I'm like available, and then you're like, oh, but I'm actually away on all the weekends, I'm free, I'm like busy all the nights, I am not free to do anything for the next 2 months. And then I'm like, sorry, you have to drop you from the research project then. So if you're trying to make yourself, like, if you're gonna get involved, like make sure you like actually have time to do it. I think summer is a good opportunity. It's like nice to like have a few chunks where you're quite free, and I would say at least having like 2 days of a week that you're actually free to like work on the research are really important. And if you're assigned a task, like make sure you follow through. Like the task you might have might seem kind of like a petty task, but actually like if you're given a task, usually it's something that the rest of the team's work will fall on as well. So every task is actually really important. And then 4-year program as opposed to a 3-year medical school, UBC is a beautiful place to study. It has a very strong clinical years, so like the years I'm doing in 4th year, we have a lot of time to do a lot of clinical activities, so a lot of exposures, there's a lot of hospitals to work in, there's a lot of world experts to work in. I have always been a big city girl, so I wanted to like live in a big city. Let's see, UBC is really good, so UBC's residency programs are really good, so like, you know, if you want to get into UBC residency program, it's easy for you to build connections if you're ready here for medical school. We have a lot of strong research. UBC is good. I think it's also very flexible in terms of its curriculum. So I guess Waterloo doesn't have its own medical school, but Queen's, for example, like not to look down on Queen's, it's just like personal preference. When I went to the Queen's interview, they said they have to be like mandatory in-person class, like full week, like every day from like 8 to 5. And UBC, like I had to only go to class, like when I was in second year, I only had to go to mandatory class from 8 till 10 in person, and then after that it was like recorded lectures, so I could watch them in my own time. And I love that. Like I personally like flexibility of time, and I wanted to watch it virtually, so I, again, like UBC had a lot of factors that I would encourage, and I'm obviously biased and I think that's the best school to go to. But and it's really good if you're interested in rural work. Like we have a really strong setup for that. How did you spend your summers in high school, and are some jobs better than others for medical school? No, I think all jobs are really good for medical school. I think like just having work experience itself just means a lot, that you're responsible, you can like commit to things. Summers in high school, what did I do? High school seems like a long time ago, to be honest. I think I worked pretty much every summer, as far as I can remember. I don't think I did anything remarkable though. To be honest, I never had the money to like travel or anything, so I just was stuck here just working, and I never like traveled or I didn't do any fancy programs. Like I was so worried that I never did one of those like programs where you like go to like a rural, you know, you go to like a third world country and you do all these like fancy things, and so I thought that would really harm my resume, and I don't think it did at all. Like I think actually like just staying here and local. And then what else did I do in the summers? I kept up with like volunteering that I was doing. Sorry, I don't remember high school very much. It's been a while. Okay, let's see. What is the best advice you have for pre-meds? My best advice for pre-meds is try to keep up your grades. I think like grades are the most important thing you could keep up. I think there was a big myth when I went into undergrad myself, is that like extracurriculars, for some reason there's this misconception that extracurriculars matter more than your grades. I actually would say your grades matter more than your extracurriculars. That's my personal bias, so try never to let those fall. I remember one of the physicians gave me this analogy. He says like having low grades and trying to bring them back up is like trying to pass a kidney stone. You can do it, but it's super painful, so it's better just to like keep them up in the first place. So like I would really make sure you like focus on like studying. So let's see, I would have good study tips. I would say are try to try to study early. Like, I think it's really easy as an undergrad to get into the procrastination cycle, but starting like 2 to 3 weeks early like really makes a difference. So I would actually like, I wish I had discovered this early on in undergrad, but I would literally have like a calendar reminder that would say, like, hey, it's like 2 weeks before your paper is due, it's 2 weeks before your exam is due, and it would remind me to get started. And so I would try to like slowly start studying for an exam like 2 or 3 weeks in advance. And so that would be really helpful to space out through exams. I don't know if it's the same with you guys at Waterloo, but I remember like UBC exams were so painful because they would stack them. So they would stack them, like I remember on the first day of exams, there would be like one at 8:30, the next day would be one at 8:30, the next day would be one at 8:30, and then the next one would be like the same day at like 1:30 p.m. and that was like totally okay for whatever reason. So I think like an old strategy like that I realized didn't work is I can't just be like, I'm going to study for the first exam and then ignore the other exams and then I'm going to start studying for the other one. It's just like to have a schedule and to start studying for like all those exams like weeks in advance so that you cover everything before the first day. So like, when it came to like the actual exam day, so like if I had the exam on like a Tuesday and a Wednesday, then I don't need to study on that Tuesday night if I don't need to. That just like really helps. Like I think like there's like, you can't really cram a lot of knowledge into your brain after you're kind of already tired out from doing a final in the morning. So that's like something I wish I learned earlier. And then get those final papers out of the way. So just like start working on those like final papers like a month before they're due. So then you just have those final papers like done, tucked away, saved, you can print it, whatever, and then you don't have to touch it. You just start focusing on your exams, and then that really makes a big deal to your grades. What other study tips I would have? Another advice as a pre-med, like your major doesn't really matter. I wish I knew that. I changed my majors and I was like trying to find the perfect major to get me into medical school, and I like never ended up graduating from my major, so like it really didn't matter. But I really don't think it matters your major at all. Like I don't really think anyone cares. Like nobody thinks like a biology major is better than like a psychology major or a neuroscience major. Like it really doesn't matter at all. So I would hopefully that takes away some of your stress on that. Big other advice as a pre-med is to make some pre-med, some really tight pre-med friends that you don't feel like it's a competitive energy and you don't feel like they're taking, they're like gunners and gonna take you down. I don't know if that's like a term people use, or what UBC, what do we call it? Snakes. So someone that you really trust, and that actually just goes a long way for your stress and study motivation. So I had like a couple close friends that I'm actually in the same class medical school in, so we studied all of undergrad together. Like it just means a lot that like, there's like, it's something about like, that class that you really hate and you just really don't want to study, and like, there's someone with you who's studying from 5 to 11 at the library, and you're keeping each other accountable, and you both have to get this going, you both have to make this exam, and you both have a shared goal. And we like even used to talk about fantasies like, I can't wait to go to medical school and we're gonna do this and this together, and a lot of this came true. But like just having like a lot of motivation and support. But it also came really handy to the application time. It's like reading over each other's applications, practicing a lot for interviews, passing on study tips that we hear, passing on interview tips, just like it just goes such a long way. If you can find a mentor, another advice I would have for running pre-meds is just like find a mentor that's a medical student or someone who's above you. Like, if you're first year, second year, whatever, if you're first year, find a second year, just like to help guide you through different processes. That really helps to go a long way as well. What else for pre-meds? Yeah, for pre-meds, don't take 8 a.m. classes. Those are so terrible, and I wish like I had just taken all my classes in the afternoon, because like I think like making sure you're taking classes when you have optimal focus like actually really helps your grades. I should have known that. Let's see, just gonna pick one of these. Did you always know that you wanted to pursue medicine, and what is your motivation? Yeah, I think I've always wanted to do medicine. Like, well, that's not true. I started off like thinking I wanted to do medicine, and then I kind of went on a bit of a meandering path at different times. So, let's see, what did I do? I like briefly considered doing writing, like becoming a writer. I kind of dabbled, thought I was like, oh, maybe I spent like a couple months thinking like, oh, maybe I'll apply to business, and I ended up applying to business as my second major. As my like second choice major for my undergrad, but I ended up like choosing science. I actually seriously thought I was gonna do like PhD, like do a PhD and just become like a full-time researcher. but I think in the end, like, medicine is the like best path, like, for me. It's just the most interesting. It's the most like, it's just the most fulfilling thing I think I can do with my life, and I actually genuinely feel that now. Like, nothing makes me happier than like talking to patients, seeing them in person. Like suturing up someone, like cut their hand, suturing up someone's hand. Like, these things are just so cool, and it's so exciting to do that it makes like going to work pretty exciting every day. And I don't think I could say that about some of the other jobs that I was considering, that, like, I would do them, but like I would kind of like lose interest. And so I think this is like a job that, like, like every day it's like pretty exciting. Well, most days, not every single day, but like most days I'm like pretty excited, and there's like so many interesting stories, and you get to work with people, you get to work with like other doctors, you get to and like I would say I'm like a super extrovert. So for me, doing a job, like, for example, like doing research full time would have made me super unhappy. Like, well, like maybe like wet lab research would have made me super unhappy, because like no, I'm just saying that because one of my best friends is a PhD worker, and we've talked about this before. Actually, I have a video, I don't know how to link videos, but I have a YouTube video where we like kind of talk this back and forth about like why she decided not to pursue medicine, decided to do PhD instead, and I didn't want to do PhD, and I decided to choose medicine instead. So I would check that out. If you're anyways, I don't know how you're gonna find it, but key takeaways from that was like knowing your personality. So for me, like, doing an introvert's job would have just like absolutely like killed me. Like, I would have been so lonely and unfulfilled, like just like doing like research, even though it just makes so much meaning to the world. Whereas my friend saying like doing medicine would have like tired her out, because like you have to talk to like at least like 50 people a day, right? So for me, I love that. It energizes me. I love talking to like 50 people a day. Like, I could talk forever and ever and ever and ever and talk to everyone. I love it. I love talk, and like I just love that medicine, you get to talk with, like, you get to meet everyone from all sorts of walks of life, and they tell you all sorts of things. And it's really cool that when people are in need and they're in pain and they're sick, that you're able to provide some knowledge or skills that make them feel better, or at least like understand their condition, or you're able to give them the knowledge and skills to manage themselves to feel better. And I think that's just absolutely amazing. And there's so much diversity that you can do within medicine, so there's kind of something for everyone. If you're more a hands-on person, there's surgery. If you're kind of like an adrenaline junkie, there's emerge. If you're you love kids, there's pediatrics. You love women's health, there's OBGYN, and you love there's sports medicine. There's just so many things you can do in this field, and it's like literally the best job ever, hands down. Let's see. Sorry, my answers are way too long. How is it that some of these disappear? Okay. How did you know you wanted to become a doctor? So I ended up, so just to kind of finish up that one, anything that I considered, I would like go off and try. So if I thought I wanted to do business, then I joined like a business program for a year, like outside of school program, just like where it was like an entrepreneurship, and I didn't really like it that much. Like, I think this is something for everyone. So my partner is like an accountant, and he like just loves numbers. He just loves finance, and I like don't. So like I think once you like force yourself like into something that makes you try and see if you like it, and really like put yourself like out there to see if like, and then like same with being a doctor. Like, I think the best thing I would do is just like keep putting myself in settings that would test that. So I think I picked up a job that was like caregiving for someone, like like giving baths and feeding someone at home, and like that really just see if that tested my abilities to do that. And then I picked up I ended up getting certified in like becoming like a first aid attendant. I don't know what that's equivalent in Ontario, but like it's like a high level first aid attendant. So if you can like become like a low level paramedic, etc., that also like throwing yourself to an environment in which you continuously test whether or not you want to do medicine is important. And if you're allowed to shadow post-COVID, if that's a thing, like shadowing for a day or a week, or like actually multiple times, is the best way to find out if you like it. Like, there's some really important questions that you need to know. I think number one, can you stomach blood, is a really important question. I think you really need to know for yourself, because if not, some of this could be really difficult for you. you need to know if you like talking to people all day. Like, that's, again, really helpful to you. I think you need to know if you enjoy the science behind a lot of the medicine. And so these are some of the questions you should ask yourself if you're, trying to decide, like, do I want to become a doctor or not? And I think, I talk about this with my friends a lot, but, I feel like I genuinely I'm not interested in switching to, any other job. I think if I died and then I needed to, reincarnate, I would pick medicine again, because, I don't think there's any other job that I would rather do. Even if you said, I would hate to be a celebrity, that would be really scary to me, but, if, you said I got to be, a movie star or, a rich CEO, I don't think I would enjoy that very much. I would think I would want to pick medicine again, which sounds super cheesy, but I just think it's just so meaningful, and it, it's, a job that I think I'd love for the rest of my life. Here. Have any of my medical classmates majored in engineering in undergrad? Yes. Let me think what kind of engineering, though. There's a couple. It's not as common, because it's pretty hard to get good grades in engineering, but who majored in engineering that I know of? I can't come up with the top of my head, but I'm dead sure there's someone in my class. I have a couple friends within my own friend group that majored in computer science, and they're here in medical school, so I think that's totally fine. I would say, where's the bottom cut off? Do you have any advice about dealing with stress about getting into medical school if you know it is the career you want most? Oh man, yeah, I was super stressed all of pre-med, because I think, as I was just saying, there's no career I would rather do. So I was pretty stressed about it, because I was like, what am I going to do with my life if I don't become a doctor? To be honest, I think it was good. I think I read this from one of the female surgeons, actually. She said, that is, she personally recommends that as a route to tell people to stay motivated, is instead of being well, I want to have all these backup routes. I think when you have all these backup routes, it's easy to mentally get lazy about it. And so I think the fact that you think it's the only career that you want, it will really fuel you to study super, super hard, try super, super hard on that MCAT. I think what I would do for the stress, though, is is to realize that it's okay to take a long time to get into medical school. So the average age, I think, of my classmates is 25. A lot of people take a lot of tries to get into medical school. They finish their undergrad and then they end up doing a master's, or they end up working a different job for a couple years. They and I find that everyone says no one regrets it. No one regrets taking a longer time to get into medical school. They feel like it helped them grow so much. That experience, the extra time they took for experience, really helps them now as a doctor, interact with patients. A lot of people, maybe they took that time and they got married, they had kids, and they have no regrets that it took them a longer way. There's classmates that I have that are 30, they got in at 30, at 40, and so hopefully if that stress is you don't need to get in straight away from undergrad to medical school. And my classmates, if you get rejected from the process, it's not because you're not good enough, it's just the process is just super competitive. What are some downsides to becoming a doctor that you didn't notice as a pre-med? There's a lot of paperwork that I didn't realize. It's a bit annoying. I will have to hop into clinic in a bit, but when you were right now I'm in family medicine, so I'm referring them to the general surgeon. I have to write up a whole letter on this is the patient, so this is what's been happening. Can you please see this patient for this XYZ surgery? And I'm so much typing, and so I don't love it very much. So that's a downside. I think a lot of people would probably see the paperwork as a downside. There's every time you see a patient, you do have to write up about it. So there's a lot of note taking and paperwork that you have to do. Other downsides, I think being on call, being sleep deprived on call is really, really hard. I would consider myself a pretty intense night owl, and even then something about being called up at 3 a.m. is just real hard. It's real hard. But you kind of get used to it. After I was doing a week of 4 a.m. shifts in when I was on emergency medicine, you kind of once you get up the next day, once you've done it once, the next day getting up at 3 a.m. to make it for 4 a.m. is like really not that hard. But I think being on call, like it's really hard to be awake for like 24 hours, really that much of a rush. But I would say the hours are very long. A lot of people like start their work at like 7 a.m. or whatever, or on neurosurgery, we started our days at like 6 a.m. General surgery was at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. I can't remember. So days start real early, and then it's like a 12-hour day, and it's hard. And another downside is you don't eat. I remember like we don't eat on most days at work, so you get pretty hungry. But anyways, it's worth it, I think. Yeah, so if you do an extracurricular that wasn't very organized, self-taught piano, fitness, does that still count? Yeah, I think like a lot of people just like, they're just like they run in their spare time. You play like tennis with your friends on a regular basis. Those still count, so put those on your medical school application. This question, other careers you were considering other than medicine? Nothing. It was going to be medicine or bust. If I didn't get into medicine in Canada, I was going to apply to the States, and if I didn't get into the States, I was going to apply to like Ireland or like Australia. See, what tips do you have when starting your medical school application? How can we write a really strong medical school app? Oh, I actually have a whole video on this. I think I can like talk about it, but it took me like, I think I talked about it for like a whole hour, because there's just like so much to say about writing a school application. I'll put like having a lot of people read your application is really important, just so that people can really feel if like other people can tell you like if the tone is coming off right, like because like there's a way of writing that can sound really arrogant, and there's a way of sounding it that sounds like super passionate and more genuine. What else would I say for the application is make sure you spend a lot of time on your application. I think I spent like a couple months just working on the application and like really like refining them, especially like there's some schools, like I think it was Calgary and Toronto, where you have to write these whole like essays, so those took forever. So like make sure you like put a lot of time on that. Having when you're starting your application, what else would I say? Get your references early. So like I think the references were due in December, and I emailed them in like July, because like you just want to give people a lot of time, because like especially if you're asking a doctor or professor, like people are super busy, and so the last thing you want to do is give someone like a day or two notice, or even like a week notice is just like way too little for like most working professionals, because like most people only have like maybe like a spot of time on the weekend. So give them like months and months like to work on your reference letters, and like remind them 5,000 times. I would say that's like my biggest tip. Like get those references like together and remind them 5,000 times. Set everything up for and then kind of keep your documents organized. So like keep a centralized list of your different a list of all your different like activities. So like make your own document, which is like almost like an OMSAS, but like a little bit like longer. But like, you know, like this is your activities, this is like the dates you did them, whoever is going to be your referee person on that, but like hours and like your little spiel. And then you're gonna like keep that like kind of have that as a master document, so that when you're working on like your Ontario application, you're working on your UBC application, you have it open and you can like copy paste and move things around, that kind of stuff. So yeah, like what else would I say for the application? I would try to like, I took out all things like I did, we did, so that I would just have like a better word count, and I just go like led, you know, this club, and just kind of like a lot of just like verbs. Try to take out like unnecessary adjectives, so that you are just again like telling us like more different points about like what you do and stuff like that.